Coming up, a top 10 list we'd rather not be on.
A good guy with a drone takes down a bad guy with a drone.
A flying club may be just the thing for you.
And slipping the surly bonds for the first time as PIC. AOPA Live this week begins in just a moment.
It's been called the most sophisticated single-engine airplane ever. But to the people whose loved ones are alive today, it's called a lifesaver. The Cirrus Airframe Parachute System, only from Cirrus Aircraft.
Here we go again. The NTSB has GA on its top 10 list for 2016. Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Melissa Rudinger.
And I'm Warren Morningstar. Tom Haynes is on assignment.
Some areas on this year's list remain from last year in substance impairment in transportation, disconnect from deadly distractions, prevent loss of control in flight in general aviation, and require medical fitness for duty.
It feels like deja vu.
The good news is that airline accidents have become, thankfully, very rare in America. The bad news is that the fatal accident rate in general aviation has been stubbornly resistant to improvement for many years. The worst single cause of general aviation fatal accidents has been loss of control in flight, inadvertent spins and stalls.
Yeah, we are. We're still on the NTSB's top 10 list, G8 loss of control. But what's important to remember is that we've recorded 3 of the safest years in general aviation history. In fact, we're on a positive trend, and every year we're seeing safety levels increase. And so we're hopeful that next year general aviation will be off of the NTSB's top 10.
While safety improvements in other transportation areas may seem intractable, the NTSB thinks the aviation industry can further reduce loss of control accidents, so that's why we're on the list again.
We've had general aviation on the list now for the last 4 years, but we've gotten more specific. Last year we focused on loss of control, and we've been quite successful in terms of getting the industry to focus on loss of control. But we're at a point now where we've got AOPA emphasizing loss of control, EAA emphasizing loss of control, NBAA emphasizing loss of control, FAA emphasizing loss of control. And given that almost half of the fatal accidents are loss of control accidents, if we can make a big improvement in this, we can make a really substantial improvement in safety of general aviation.
And what could reduce loss of control accidents?
But things like angle of attack information, both on retrofit, new airplanes, has the potential for drastically reducing loss of control.
The AOPA Air Safety Institute has a series of courses and videos on loss of control, including this video on angle of attack indicators. And Melissa, the AOPA has worked pretty hard over the last few years to make it a little bit easier to retrofit AOA indicators to GA aircraft, right?
We have. So AOPA, Gamma, and others, we've worked with the FAA to get a policy change that's in effect now, that rather than going through the more expensive TSO process, you can get the retrofit through a letter of authorization, which is a much cheaper, faster route.
Yeah, that is. And meanwhile, support for general aviation from another branch of government. Members of the House General Aviation Caucus fired a letter off to the FAA boss urging him to hang tough in protecting federally obligated airports. Now, they're concerned about local governments who are trying to close airports. Santa Monica is, of course, at the top of their list. In December, the FAA ruled that Santa Monica is obligated to keep the airport open until 2023. Santa Monica continues to fight the ruling.
But there are plenty of other cities that want your flying business, including the 4 communities that will be hosting the AOPA fly-ins this year: Beaufort, North Carolina, Battle Creek, Michigan, Prescott, Arizona, and Bremerton, Washington. And you can find out more at our fly-in website, aopa.org/fly-in. You can RSVP to attend a fly-in, and we'd love to have you volunteer to help. And you can register for that too. So we hope to see you at one of our fly-ins this year. The big event last week in Las Vegas was the Consumer Electronics Show, and this year drones made a huge appearance. Some 27 unmanned aerial system manufacturers exhibited in Sin City. Biggest splash, figuratively, has been the E-Hung 184, a person-carrying drone. No pilot controls inside. You're just along for the ride as the computer flies it. I bet this has the FAA regulatory folks in a conundrum.
I'm sure it does. Well, and speaking of the FAA, it's been long promised, but now it's finally available. The FAA's drone app. It's available now in the Apple Store. The app will let you know if it's okay to fly a drone in your current location, and it looks for both airports and TFRs. You can also plan ahead and check another location and time. There's a beta version of the app for Android devices. And if a drone operator fails to pay attention to the app, Michigan Tech has a solution for rogue drones, a drone catcher. This fighter fires a net to ensnare its prey. The drone catcher can entrap a drone up to 40 feet away and then bring it back to the ground. It can be flown by a pilot or it can operate on its own, patent pending.
One of AOPA's goals for this year is to get more people involved in flying clubs. AOPA Live's Josh Cochran has a story of a successful new club in Winter Haven, Florida.
It's a perfect Florida day to hang out at the airport with friends, and that's exactly what these pilots are doing as part of the Central Florida Flying Club. This newly formed club is the perfect example of how the best way to experience aviation is in community.
Just the ability to grab a burger and a hot dog and sit down with people you find out you really like and have a lot in common with, it's an incredible experience.
Flying clubs bring together an incredibly diverse group of people.
We have everybody from the ages of 14 up to their 60s.
We have commercial pilots that work as pilots. We have mechanics. The fact that a kid or an occasional recreational pilot can come in and interact with people who are real professionals and learn things that they never would have learned just walking around at the coffee shop. It's a great thing.
One of the ways this flying club brings a variety of people into aviation is through an interactive ground school.
The flying club gives you a lot of people to bounce ideas off of. It's just not a one-on-one with me.
You know, that's definitely one of the great things about aviation is the more people you know, the more things you learn.
Flying clubs also provide a powerful tool for bringing rusty pilots back to the airport. For pilot Sean McCarthy, the club provided everything he was looking for to get back in the air.
Decent four-seat airplane, the rates were reasonable, and the people are great. 2016 is going to be a year of lots of flying, I'm sure of it.
Highly encourage people to come out and, at least look into a flying club because I think just knowing other people who like the same thing as you, it's an amazing thing.
Josh Cochran, AOPA Live.
Thanks, Josh. That looks like a lot of fun. AOPA has a number of resources for starting or joining a flying club. You can find out more at aopa.org. Go to the Pilot Resource tab and click on Flying Clubs. Coming up after the break, new tools to help you avoid a dreaded mid-air collision.
And becoming PIC for the very first time. You're watching AOPA Live this week.
From your first skyward glance, the dream of flight compelled you. And from your first glimpse of a Cirrus, you realized that dream had a name. Cirrus Aircraft. Go where you've never been before.
Welcome back. You're watching AOPA Live this week.
Mid-air collisions tend to make the headlines, and I don't know a single pilot who doesn't dread the idea of it happening to them.
But fortunately, they aren't that common. The AOPA Air Safety Institute has a new video that takes a look at mid-airs and provides pilots with tools and information to help avoid them.
Statistically speaking, it's a pretty low chance of ever being involved in a mid-air, but the video really highlights some areas that if you know that you can really help bring your safety margins up to avoid it ever happening to you.
You can see it at airsafetyinstitute.org.
Well, we did it thanks to your generous support. The AOPA Hat in the Ring Society met and exceeded the matching challenge for 2015. Now, 2 donors offered separate $100,000 challenge grants for every dollar raised by the end of the year. Donors Michael Baldwin and the Tom Davis Fund would match the donations up to $200,000. Well, you responded with amazing generosity, and more than $280,000 were raised to support the AOPA Foundation.
Watch out, boys. A woman is about to take the Red Bull Air Races by storm. Melanie Estelles will be the first woman to compete in the Red Bull race. Melanie is a 5-time French aerobatic champion, and she has an inspirational story fighting for her dream to fly. She worked her way up from an entry-level job as a gas station manager to manager of several gas stations to pay for her flying lessons. The first Red Bull Air Race of the year will be this March in Abu Dhabi.
Well, the FAA is changing student pilot certificates. Starting on April 1st, the FAA is the only body that can issue a certificate. You won't be able to use your medical certificate as your student pilot certificate anymore. Now, the new certificate is a plastic card issued by the FAA. Now, that change could mean that you would be about 3 weeks delay in receiving a certificate, so CFIs plan well in advance for that first solo. Well, the first significant milestone for an aviator is, of course, their first solo. A pilot never forgets the first time they launch into the wild blue yonder sans right seat ballast.
And AOPA Live's Paul Harrop shows us it's a team effort to get there. But it's a joyous moment for all involved, especially when it's one of our own.
Flying is something I've always been interested in, something I've always wanted to do since I was a little kid, really.
AOPA Live's Josh Cochran was bitten by the flying bug early on, and his CFI Chris Mosier is just as nuts about it.
Ever since being a little kid, I've loved airplanes, and also, you know, I love teaching, so for me it's the ultimate combination that I get to teach people how to fly.
Chris works in flight training initiatives at AOPA and also instructs fellow employees.
A good student, I'd say commitment, someone that really wants to learn, is passionate about it, is excited about it, and is willing to also put in the practice and the hard work that's also part of it.
And Josh has certainly met that end of the deal. Woo! After months of hard work, it was time for Chris to get out of the airplane and let Josh be pilot in command.
It was really pretty amazing. I mean, just the feeling of doing it alone was really kind of surreal, and just the feeling of being alone in the airplane and taking off, the feeling of the freedom, and also the feeling of I'm the only one here, and the only way this airplane's getting back on the ground is if I land it. So it was really pretty amazing feeling.
It's obviously amazing. So like when you're in the airplane, you're going around the pattern with them, and you know you've gotten to this point, and it's like at that point, you know, I never would solo anybody that I didn't have total confidence in. So it's very much like the sense of like when I go to get out, I'm like, you're good to go. But then there's also the part where then you're on the ground and you're watching now, and then it's like, you know, I'm sure CFIs out there can, you know, relate to this in the sense of like you're kind of pacing back and forth like, don't forget what I told you.
Honestly, we're so high, it's not even good.
But Josh doesn't. Not only does he fly perfectly with a whole nest of GoPros on the airplane and a crowd of AOPA staff watching from the ground, he greases all 3 landings.
Beautiful. Oh, that is good. How was it? It was good. It's cool, right? Yeah. Congratulations.
Thanks. Fortunately, my landings are better than my radio calls.
Nah, it was fine. I knew what you were doing.
Just chew your way through it.
So with a freshly trimmed shirt tail, Josh is getting back to working towards his private and looking ahead to learning more.
Flight training has really been a really rewarding experience, I think even more so than I thought it would be, and I've just really enjoyed it and hope to continue on.
With sincere congratulations, Paul Harrop, AOPA Live.
Thanks, Paul. And, you know, congrats to Josh. We were all out there watching, and Paul mentioned it in the piece, but I have to reinforce, those were 3 of the sweetest landings I've ever seen. I think Josh could teach all of us a little bit.
They really were, and man, no pressure there, everybody watching.
yeah, everybody from AOPA watching and all the cameras on the airplane.
Great job, Josh. Well, that's all for us this week. Thanks for watching AOPA Live this week. Hope to see you again next Thursday.